Well then, let's get rolling. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Colomb. I am the president of NGP Van and the general manager for organizing at Every Action. I am super excited to welcome everyone here today for this webinar on how our customers can get the most out of Every Action and Mobilize together. As folks know, we announced that we are joining forces with Mobilize, I guess about a month and a half ago now. So really excited to be here with Alan Kramer, who I will let introduce himself.
Before I flip to the next slide, I will also call out that is a picture of Amanda deadlifting 300 pounds, being
305,
yeah,
technically.
305, there you go. So yeah, super excited to be here today. Amanda and I, before joining forces, have had the chance to collaborate and be friends for a long time, and it's great to get to now work together every day. I'm Alan Kramer, the co-founder and president of Mobilize, now also over at Every Action. Very excited to talk today with all of you about why we joined forces, what we do, what we did independently, and now what we're going to do together, and how we're delivering more value to our partners. So super excited about that.
Awesome. So sort of run of show here today, what we're going to talk about, quick intro on Every Action, quick intro on Mobilize, why we decided to join forces, and some of the awesome stuff that we think we're going to be able to offer together to people who are using both of our tools. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. So I will say up at the top, Emily Hughes from the Mobilize team is also helping us run today. So if you do have a question throughout the presentation, please put it into the Q&A and we'll have time at the end for those. And if there's any that for some reason we're not able to get to, we'll obviously make sure to reach out to folks after the webinar. So with that, intro to Every Action. What is Every Action? We are a unified CRM. We offer donor management, email, online forms advocacy, and volunteer management. So what does that mean? It means that we spend a lot of time building out a best-in-class CRM, a modern CRM that you are then able to add tools onto. CRM, not PRM. So C like coffee. So contact relationship management is what CRM stands for. So our fundraising tools cover everything from, moves management, planned giving, grants management, financial batch management, really allow our customers to go in and, manage their development programs end to end. We have a really amazing set of digital tools, everything from targeted email, which is our email platform. Marketing automation is something that we've been investing a lot in to sort of make your jobs easier, optimize, and sort of take out a lot of manual effort that goes into managing those programs. And then we have this really amazing one-click donation pool, what we call our fast action pool, which we'll also talk about in a little bit. That basically means that all of our customers are able to take advantage of our network effects across our platform so that we are hyper focused on driving conversion rates, both to make sort of the end user experience really great, but then also to make sure that it's something that benefits our customers as they are using our tools. Advocacy, same thing. We really focus on how do we make sure that the right message is getting to the intended recipient, and that flows up to the advocacy platform as well. So we have a really robust platform that allows folks to target from everywhere from, sort of the presidential level, congressional level, state and local. We actually support advocacy down to the municipal level for municipalities of 10,000, a population of 10,000 or greater. And then we also let our customers create custom targets. So if for some reason there's not something within that, if people are looking to target, the head of a corporation or something along those lines with an advocacy message, you have the ability to do that. And then organizing, which is generally my bailiwick. So everything having to do with voter contact, volunteer management, event management, member activation. We also have a really robust tool suite that allows people to run all of those programs as well. And again, really the core value that we provide our customers is the ability to have all of those different channels and all of those different programs run both independently, but also in a cohesive way because you're running them out of the same CRM, out of the same platform. So you could really gain a lot of insight and efficiency in terms of how departments are running those programs and how you're able to, from a high level, really see the 360-degree view of a supporter, of who you're trying to contact, so that you could really understand, what are the best channels that, that people respond to, what are the messages that they respond to, when should you be reaching out to them, and you're able to see that really across all of those different data sets and programs. I also, I have actually been with NGP Van in EveryAction for, it'll be 13 years in April, which is wild. And one of the reasons why I have stayed at this company for so long and why I love this company so much is because we consider ourselves a double bottom line company. We are a mission-driven business. We believe in doing good in the world and working with people who are committed to doing good in the world. We are hyper-focused on making sure that our employees have really amazing benefits, but also it means that, when we're out there working with clients, we do actually care about the mission, right? And that, frankly, that our clients also don't need to worry about us working with folks who, decline to work with organizations that oppose a woman's right to choose or stand in the way of LGBT rights or deny climate change. And yes, I should point out, EveryAction is our parent company. It's the company where we serve all of our nonprofit clients, and NGP Van is our political brand. So really, in the end, that all rolls up to we build products that make a difference. We also are a company that is really committed to we have a lot of domain experts who work here, meaning we've sat in the seats of the people at nonprofits, across our product team, our engineering team, our client services and support and account management teams. It is important to us that we are able to really, truly, deeply understand and speak to the needs of our nonprofit customers. And that just means that it allows us to be even more hyper-focused on meeting those needs, and really making sure that we are able to build not just what people need now, but directionally where they're going in the future and the kind of tools that they need in order to really run world-class programs. So with that, I will actually, oh, excuse me, sorry. The last note that I will say is our incredible tool set is used by everyone from National Audubon Society, Covenant House, Comic Relief, United Nations Foundation, and many, many more. Again, going back to us being mission driven, one of the things that I love the most about working here is getting to work with our incredible clients. And I think that that's something where, I'm about to let Alan take it away and talk about Mobilize. And then we'll talk a little bit more about how we're coming together. But the fact that we have so much alignment in terms of, who we work with, how we're working with them, and the things that we care about, and also the things that we want to help our customers achieve, is really, I think, a core value proposition that we all really care about.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. And I know, obviously, you'll work with a lot of incredible organizations. One of the reasons that we're super excited to be now, working together, joint forces. So as I said, I'm, one of the co-founders of Mobilize. We connect mission-driven organizations and supporters to make the world more just, inclusive, and democratic. Those are sort of these three central values that, in a lot of ways are highly aligned to sort of the mission of EveryAction. Again, one of the reasons why we're super excited to now be one. What that means is we are laser focused on helping you drive more action more easily to achieve your mission. And it really centers on a platform that is designed to build a relationship with your supporters, sort of facing them, allowing them to sign up for action really easily in a single destination. And we do that in these three pillars, allowing you to recruit supporters more easily, increase supporter engagement, and turbocharging your work with our network. When we talk about recruiting supporters more easily, we are really talking about giving the organizations, our partners, an ability to post all of their actions, all of their events in a single branded destination, and really giving them the tools to manage all of those events and actions in a single place. And critically, have all of that data flow into the CRM that you use, and more than 50% of our partners are using EveryAction or NGP Van as their CRM. So really giving that sort of 360 data view while having the set of tools to manage really easily all of your actions in a single place. Importantly, obviously for this year, now going forward, we have always managed both in-person events, but also virtual actions. We saw a massive uptick, obviously, over the course of February to March in the use of virtual events, where historically it had been about 25% of actions on the platform. Overnight, it flipped to 99% of all action signups were into virtual events, and actually saw a massive increase, again, because we were already prepared to allow our partners to capitalize on that sort of virtual engagement, and have that central platform to manage those actions. This second big pillar, increasing supporter engagement, really is about a system to automate and enable our partners to really drive that deeper engagement with their supporters. So for example, automating confirmation messages before an event. For those of you who signed up through the Mobilize event page for this webinar, you may have gotten your email or text message reminder to actually confirm your attendance. We also do sort of post sign up or post event follow-up messages to check and see how people's experiences were. And then we use that as a mechanism to drive up engagement. So for example, when you sign up for an event on Mobilize, we prompt you to sign up for more, and we give you sort of personalized recommendations. Or we also have a suite of tools now to drop you in an automated newsletter sequence to give organizations the ability to drive sort of personalized event and action recommendations to their supporters. And this drives a ton of engagement for our partners, both over email and text message. This is really, really helpful for organizations of all scales to drive up and nearly double the amount of action that they're getting out of their supporters. And then the last pillar is the sort of network aspect of Mobilize. And there are a bunch of things that we do in this when we talk about the network, but it's one of the things that makes Mobilize maybe most unique. So one of the things is that we've now had 4.2 million volunteers use the Mobilize platform. And that also means that when they come back, so if maybe they signed up through, one of our nonprofit partners in the past, and then if you're on the platform and that same supporter is also working with you, we can personalize their experience on your branded page. And that's really powerful because we know that personalization leads to much higher engagement rates. One of the other aspects of our network is that we aggregate up every event on the platform, every action on the platform at mobilize.us, what we call our national feed, that houses every action that any one of our partners has, which is driving a ton of traffic for our partners. And we also have had about 1 million of those 4 million go to mobilize.us that we can help really tap into for our partners, so you can grow your list much more easily. And then we also let people collaborate across organizations. It's a very powerful capability that allows our organizations to do what we call cross-promote each other's events. So that's really the Mobilize platform. It's this sort of platform directly focused on driving up the amount of action. As I mentioned, integrates directly into EveryAction. We'll talk a little bit more about how our partners use us together, but we see these platforms as very complementary. We started, just a few years ago and grew quite quickly over the course of the last, 3 or 4 years, and really support a wide range of organizations, nonprofits, electoral organizations, labor unions, government entities, and companies to drive and deepen that supporter engagement. And we're really proud about the, nearly 3,000 organizations that we've supported to date. And, you can see some of them just right now on this slide. And as I mentioned, that network effect has grown super rapidly and continues to accelerate. We've now had 4.2 million supporters use our platform whose experiences we can personalize. You can see that growth has happened tremendously quickly. So you can imagine what that's going to look like over the next few years. Actually, internally, we've set a target to reach 20 million by 2024. And so you can imagine the power of this platform over time. As you're part of this network of now 4 million supporters and 3,000 other organizations, going to, tens of thousands of organizations and 20 million volunteers that have taken action through the platform. So why did we join forces? Amanda, I'll hand this back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. I hope, right, that as I was sort of giving the overview of Every Action and Alan giving the overview of Mobilize, you know, at least from our perspective, it became pretty clear, right? I think, you know, first and foremost, really like to call out again that we are two companies with shared values. You know, we have really strong alignment in being mission driven and in who we want to serve and why we want to serve them. We also have really complementary tools, right? You know, as we're talking about what Every Action is, what it provides. Frankly, I love to tell the story, right? As we've been talking to people about this, when Alan, you know, sort of first reached out about 4 years ago and said, hey, you know, I have this incredible idea. I think that this is, you know, an area of technology that could really use some investment and that could use some specific tools, and that there's an opportunity here, right? In terms of both how we make people's programs better and, you know, how we're sort of driving higher value to organizations who would use these tools. And, you know, that was something that just really clicked for me from the first conversation. And over the course of the last several years, as Alan mentioned, you know, we have stayed in touch, and we've built already, Mobilize built a really incredible integration that has been used by our, you know, hundreds and hundreds of mutual clients already. And so that's where, you know, as people are going out, as they're hosting these events, as they're creating these events, and as they're joining these events, having all of that information flow back into Every Action as the CRM is just something that makes a ton of sense in terms of being complementary, and is really sort of fitting into our, you know, internal ecosystem of what we're providing our customers. Again, that sort of ties right into, right? We already have a ton of shared clients. You know, I think that that's an area where Mobilize has really proven themselves to become a really core piece of infrastructure, right? For customers who are using them, for partners who are doing a lot of event management. I think, frankly, I was super impressed by what they were able to offer to people in 2020 as COVID hit, and their ability to just really immediately and seamlessly help shift programs to virtual. I think that people who were utilizing Mobilize and our tools, you know, we would just hear about the impact that was able to have, and how people were able to really just much more quickly and seamlessly shift to sort of this new reality that we were all living in. And then the last note, you know, going back to what Alan was also talking about in terms of the network, right? Again, we have our Fast Action network that I talked about earlier that really allows us to drive much higher conversion rates for our customers. That's obviously also something that Alan and his team at Mobilize are also hyper focused on. And also, you know, not just conversion rates, but all of the other benefits, right? Of combining that pool of 4 million volunteers with our pool of all of the people who have donated or taken any of those advocacy actions or done anything else on our platform, and how we're able to both derive insight and drive people to more action. So again, you know, how does that all kind of come together? The way that we think of it is that, you know, our sort of core value here is that Mobilize is the best front end for supporter events and actions. And that we, as Every Action, also are where you can get that holistic view of all of your supporter data together. And so together, that is going to allow us to help our clients boost engagement and maximize the overall impact that they are trying to drive.
So we've both mentioned this integration that we have between our two platforms. That's really at the core, in some ways, of our ability to deliver shared value to our partners. It's actually been used. We love to brag about this, you know, when we talk about how we can add value to clients and you know, is this integration going to work? We've actually had over 1,200 organizations sync over 9 million signups across this integration. This has been battle tested at very large scales. And for organizations that are larger, we've also had really complex setups. So we know that we can not only handle large volume and scale, but a ton of complexity in, you know, very sophisticated 100 plus committee, you know, setups where you have a lot of different sort of nested van committees or Every Action committees, and you know, we can map to that from the Mobilize side. The integration syncs people records, event records, and signups and attendance in real time from Mobilize to EveryAction, and then automatically deduplicates records using EveryAction's API. So we've built this, tested it at very large scales, and again, is one of the things that has allowed us to deliver a lot of shared value to our partners. And we wanted to actually walk you through one example. We've been at Mobilize proud to partner with Narelle for now, I think, almost 2.5, maybe even 3 years. They were one of our first partners. We've got to really work with them for a long time, and I know EveryAction has as well. And so we just wanted to quickly walk you through some of the results that they've gotten by using this platform together. Obviously, with reproductive rights under assault, Narelle's membership rapidly grown over the last couple of years. And they turned to EveryAction for a number of solutions: digital, development, organizing, to manage all of their online and offline supporter data and fundraising. And then they use Mobilize as the front end for their supporters to take action. So they, Narelle has a branded page. You can see an example of this that aggregates up sort of the feed of all of their events and actions in a single place. And then obviously they benefit from that automation on our side to keep those people engaged, empower their supporters, translate them to donors, and then get all of that data in EveryAction, where they're doing a bunch of other things, both to manage that data, you contact people through EveryAction, and then also a lot of other functionality that they've built in there and have helped drive really great results. They 3x'd their volunteer shifts on a sort of ongoing basis, really just totally differential in terms of the amount of action that they could drive out of their supporter base. They also saved a ton of time through this sort of integrated solution. They estimated about 5 hours per week per staff member, really just incredible amount of time savings. And incredibly, we talked about that impact of that Mobilize network, things like Mobilize.us, that exposure, but cross promotion as well. They actually got 29% of their shifts, their signups, from the Mobilize network. So real, just total value across the board here. Super proud to work with them. And I know they're a great example of delivering that combined value, that shared value. So what does the future hold? Amanda, I'd love to hand this back over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can imagine, and sort of as we've been talking about, one of the reasons why we're so excited is because we feel really great about the work that we've already done together. And we think that there is sort of a really clear path for us in terms of how do we just continue to invest in that and make sure that we are aligning things for our mutual clients as we're growing into 2021 and 2022. So first of all, that means investing further in our integration, right? As anyone, I think, on this webinar who has utilized an integration before knows, there's always more that you can do, and there's always more that our mutual clients want. So really trying to drill in and figure out, what are sort of the next set of higher value fields that we can make sure are integrating between our two platforms. The other piece, as we've been talking about a bunch, is how do we integrate our networks and make sure that, that pool of 4 million folks from Mobilize joins up with the Fast Action Network so that benefits people across both of our platforms. So that, we're sort of both drawing out of those pools and again, continuing to help drive higher conversion, more action, more engagement. Improving targeting through data intelligence. Actually, Alan, I think I'm going to toss that one over to you.
Yeah, there are these last two buckets, we're really excited about unlocking new use cases. So for example, we've always wanted to allow for even more donations to be driven on the sign up, from Mobilize. So right now, if you configure it, you can have your volunteers sign up for an action and we'll prompt them with a donation ask. I'll talk a little bit about some of the results from that in a second, but we've always wanted to have deeper integrations, and now we have the right partner to be able to really flesh out some of that solution for our partners to be able to do more fundraising on Mobilize and sort of integrating that volunteer and supporter journey, but also improving targeting through data intelligence. There's just a lot that collectively we know about supporters across our two platforms that we really want to help bundle for our partners to take the right actions, make the right asks to people, and do that kind of collectively through our intelligence. And wanted to actually share a couple of examples of some of the things that we've found in our data that we want to deliver as insights to our partners. And so just thought we'd end actually with a couple of these cool insights that we've discovered together. So the first is that volunteers are donors. I mentioned this just before, but on Mobilize, between 7 and 20% of supporters donate an average of $29 to $35 when prompted to donate immediately after signing up for an action. It's this moment where someone is hyper primed to feel really connected to your organization. They've just given up some of their time. They've either done an action right then, or they've signed up to maybe set aside an hour of their time for the weekend, that precious time of theirs. They're hyper primed to feel really connected. And so we know that that's a great moment to make an ask. And again, we're sort of talking together about how we can deliver even more value there and allow our partners to raise more money on Mobilize. We know that that's a critical thing for a lot of our shared partners, and EveryAction has some incredible capabilities there that we're looking forward to leveraging. The second is that taking action is social. One of the things that we found fascinating as we dug into some of our data together is that 39% of supporters have taken action with the same people multiple times on our platform. So that means, Alan volunteered with Amanda at an organization before, and then we actually volunteered again together at a different event. And that doesn't sort of remove the pool of people that may have only taken one action on the platform. So we're talking about a very high percentage of people that have taken action together. And one of the things that we've seen is this network is really powerful, because on that note, almost 14% of people have not only taken action with each other, but they've done so across multiple organizations. And again, that's where that being on a networked platform is really powerful, because you can get that effect, that social effect of people bringing their friends across organizations. So maybe one of your supporters has 10 friends that you don't know about, but those friends are already connected to them on Mobilize. And again, that's the sorts of insights that we bring together as a collective platform. And we also know that organic distribution on Mobilize.us boosts signups by between 5 and 7% for our partners, which we're really excited about. And then we also know that giving leadership opportunities is key, because leaders grow your organization. What we've seen in our data, we have this sort of volunteer generated events capabilities. And again, all of that data syncs into EveryAction, giving you that sort of holistic solution. 54% of signups into those volunteer hosted events are actually new supporters to the organization. I mean, these are the types of insights that we want to be able to deliver together, but are also part of the power of the platform in this combined solution. So with that, would love to open it up to Q&A.
We have so many questions for all of you. So we'll dive right in. And if there's others that come up while we're talking, just throw them in Q&A. I'll make sure they get answered. Before we dive into, there's a lot about roadmap and pricing and future features together. But before we get into that, there was a little confusion in chat and one question in Q&A about how Van fits into this. We clearly have some Van users on here. So Amanda, do you mind clarifying one more time?
Yes, absolutely. So folks who might have worked on campaigns before, familiar with Van or Vote Builder, that really sort of maps to our organizing product for nonprofits. So under our EveryAction brand. Hope that clarifies it. I'll leave it there. I guess the way that it ties back to Mobilize is if you utilize Van on the political side or organizing on the nonprofit side, those are the features that Mobilize integrates with.
Great. Along those lines, there's questions about which EveryAction modules you need to be using in order to use the Mobilize integration.
Got it. So that would be organizing, volunteer management, or digital.
Great.
And Amanda, to clarify, that's because that's where you get that sort of unified 360
events.
View of your
exactly.
Of your people, right?
So those are our packages that include events, basically.
Yeah. And that'll then allow us to write that event data in so that you get that full view of your supporters in EveryAction.
Exactly.
Okay, and then there's a couple questions about how this will complement or replace the event engagement module on EveryAction, or what the difference is between the two.
Guess, do you have a couple more details about that?
I think I can do sort of a V0. I think the question may be about, you have sort of an events module within EveryAction, and Mobilize is a really sort of standalone events and action platform. The way that we've thought about this is kind of, and Amanda obviously jump in, the way that we've thought about this is that sort of Mobilize as the front end for your supporters, and EveryAction is that sort of 360 view of the data. And so, Mobilize is this great way to drive up engagement, but then we sync that data into the EveryAction events or My Campaign events data model really cleanly. So you can use those two platforms, very much together.
They responded.
Amanda, anything else that you'd add to that?
No, I was just going to say, I think I'll leave that there because I think you explained that really clearly.
We got a thank you in the chat, so I think you were spot on.
Okay.
A question about the NARAL case study, the 29% additional shifts that they received, was that through the cross promotion feature?
So when we talk about sort of benefit from the network, that will come from a number of different sources. I forget the exact breakdown across these for, in this case study specifically, but that'll be a combination of cross promotion, which if I remember correctly, platform wide is about 10% of all signups in 2020. That'll be a combination of people bringing their friends through sort of our semi-automated and automated sort of social recruitment. So we really provide tools for your supporters to bring their friends. And so we bundle that in that 29%. That also includes the amount that's coming from the Mobilize network. So that pool of 1 million people that have signed up through mobilize.us and are in that sort of pool of people or are finding events on mobilize.us, that sort of national feed, that's what adds up to that 29%. But it's really that part of the signups that's really unique to what you can only get on Mobilize, because we're very focused on driving up those numbers.
Similar to that, we had someone ask if there's a way to use Mobilize without having your events aggregated into the big list on mobilize.us.
Yeah, there are a couple of different reasons that we've seen some people want to do that. Obviously, private events, we separately have sort of an ability for you to just host a private event. We see this a lot with some of our labor union or nonprofit partners where they want to do either, a private, maybe a members only event or, any other number of reasons. But then we also have a setting where if you don't want to turn off cross promotion entirely, you can do that. We tend to not see very many people do that, again, because they're getting that access to a much wider network, and the ability to grow their list is really powerful. But we know that there are some reasons why for some organizations that's important. So we've sort of enabled a setting for you to do that.
Follow up to this, are you able to only target supporters within a certain state instead of nationally?
So when you get to the Mobilize feed, and actually, Amanda, I'd love to hear how you all think about targeting, because I know you've spent a lot of time thinking about targeting. Just from that supporter front end experience, when you land on mobilize.us, we're actually automatically using your browser's IP address to sort of geo-filter the events and recommend stuff that's relevant to you. And then obviously, if you've been to Mobilize before, we can do even more personalization. So we can, if you go to mobilize.us and you've signed up through a Mobilize page before, we can actually say, hey, welcome back, Alan. Here are some events you might like. And over time, you'll see that recommendation engine get smarter and smarter. So definitely you can both search by geographic location, but we're also automatically doing some of that for you. But Amanda, I'd love to also hear a little bit more about how you all think about targeting.
I mean, from our side, I think it's a lot of that. It's also, frankly, just like within segmentation, right? In terms of who you're serving the message to and making some selections based on location data or location area before you're sending out that message and asking people to take action. Obviously in a lot of our digital tools as well, we have merge fields and sort of those personalization fields that allow you to, drop in location-based information in order to, when it's being presented to that person, we'll sort of pull that up from the person record, right? In order to present that contextualized action request to the person who's receiving it.
All right, let's get into some pricing questions and structure before we get into roadmap. A bunch of questions about, is Mobilize automatically included with every action, or is this an additional contract? How does that all work?
Got it. So it is separate. So, not all of our clients will utilize Mobilize, and frankly, vice versa, right? We have a lot of customer alignment, but it's not 100%. And we want to make sure that our clients are able to still sort of take that option, right? If folks really want to start with Mobilize in a particular department or for a particular use case, we want to make sure that that's sort of available to them. Alan, anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, and maybe think about this, as sort of someone newer in some ways to the EveryAction ecosystem. The way that I think about this is just like not all, EveryAction digital clients have, the development suite. Mobilize is just becoming another pillar of that offering. But again, it's sort of will be packaged and bundled in different ways depending on what your organization needs. Because one of the things that we thought about is that we know that we're going to be a fit for a lot of organizations. If you have a list of supporters that you're trying to grow and engage, we're going to be a great fit to help you drive more action. But we know that that's not the objective of every organization that uses every action. For example, using you all for development and things like that. So I think that's how we've thought about it, and we're really excited about that.
Okay, a couple questions. Got to thank you, Alan. A couple questions about exactly what data flows between Mobilize and Every Action, and is it a two-way sync or a one-way sync?
Great questions.
Alan, I'm going to let you grab that one because I think
Great.
I should also point out, right, a lot of that is sort of a pull from the Mobilize side, but now I'll let Alan take it from there.
So Mobilize writes in, and we have a detailed help center article on all of the details of the integration. So I would definitely encourage people to go there or sort of write to us at our support channel, and we can sort of give you all that information or set up a conversation with our team. And we would love to go way in depth. And actually we have this link here where you can go and sign up to have a chat with our team. The kind of high level overview is that we write in, if you create an event or an action in Mobilize, we'll write that event into, again, the events sort of fields within Every Action. When someone signs up on that front end, we'll write in the person record, and we'll also write in the sign up record. And then we read out attendance statuses from Every Action. I think we do, that's the only thing that I think we do overnight. But then we also allow you to update attendance statuses on Mobilize, and also that sort of self check-in, which will also write into Every Action. So it's those sort of core fields. There's obviously some more detailed, but would love to talk to you and your organization about what sorts of things that you would want to see in that integration, and then obviously we can go into a lot more detail about the needs that you all have.
A couple questions about fundraising. Does Mobilize replace or work with event software like Classy, GiveSmart, things like that?
It's a great question. Amanda, I'd actually love for you to talk in a second about sort of your all fundraising suite and things like that. We tend to think about Mobilize as not replacing necessarily some of those tools. I would say, to preview a little bit some of our thinking for this year, I would expect more and more over the course of this year, people to be able to replace some of those use cases and put them on Mobilize. Fundraising is one of our biggest themes for 2021. It's, one of the most universal things that we heard this past year is that, I can't tell you how many partners we've had that said, hey, I get to run all of my events in action on Mobilize, and I love that. The one thing that I can't yet do is put my sort of fundraising events on there. And so I would say, look to see more of that over the course of this year. Again, partly in conjunction with that partnership with Every Action. And, but in general, we've always thought about our tools as complementary wherever possible, right? That's why we started this great partnership a long time ago with Every Action. And we didn't need to build a CRM. We've got to build and really focus on, the platform that we've built out. But Amanda, I don't know if you want to jump in and talk a little bit more about fundraising and also how you envision the future of Mobilize in that ecosystem.
Thanks, Alan. And I think really just extending and expanding what you were talking about, right? I think, as folks who are our clients already know, we do have obviously this event suite that Mobilize integrates into, and that there are a number of different other functionalities around what we offer, right? Sort of most specifically what I'm thinking of is what we call ticketed events, right? The ability to create tickets, to add guests to events, really to sort of build things out that I think tend to be more focused on the fundraising use cases. But like Alan was mentioning, so one thing I should say is obviously all of that is continuing to be offered, and people who have our development packages, et cetera, don't worry about that. That's still there. But one of the things that we are really excited about is exactly what Alan was just talking about, right? How do we sort of marry up all of the amazing tools and platform of Mobilize with sort of our fundraising ecosystem and our fundraising backend, marry those two so that people can really start to take even more advantage of how our two platforms work together and talk to each other in order to make both a really incredible supporter-facing experience and sort of attendee experience, as well as making sure that all of that information is flowing back to the CRM, available at sort of the administrative level, right, for that deeper segmentation, deeper reporting, and sort of use in other channels or other programs that people might be running.
Yeah, and actually just one thing that I'll add to that, as we think about building out our fundraising capabilities alongside the EveryAction platform, obviously getting that data in is going to be one big thing. We're also really focused when we build out and add use cases like that, really focused on leveraging the things that make Mobilize most unique. And to us, those things that we think make Mobilize most unique are a couple of things. One is really empowering supporters in that equation. So you would, one of the things that we're really excited about and have been talking about is how do we allow, your supporters to fundraise for you? So, things like grassroots fundraisers, peer-to-peer fundraisers, things like that are a place that we would probably start and lean into first, because we know that that leverages a unique capability of Mobilize, but also that network and really, what does it look like to build that fundraising approach in a networked context? Maybe you have partners that want to raise money on your behalf, or maybe there are ways that you're collaborating across organizations, but then also exposing those opportunities into that wider network. So that's really when we think about building out those new use cases, it's how can we leverage what makes us special and not try and replicate other things, but also then, again, get all of that data back into that unified platform.
Right.
Let's talk roadmap. We've had a bunch of questions about what is coming down the line for both of you. So Amanda, should we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I will keep this sort of to the Mobilize context, just for the purposes of this webinar. But yeah, I think in addition to what we were just talking about, right, which is an initiative that we're sort of looking at together, and how do we think about what that means, and how Mobilize and our events tools work together, and how we're making sure that that's a really clear and seamless experience for our mutual clients. Some of the other things that we mentioned a little earlier, right? So again, number one, how are we investing in our integration? What are sort of the highest value things or highest value additional fields that we've been hearing from our clients that could be really useful to them, as they're running their programs? And then the second really is that integration of the networks, right? I think we both believe really strongly that this is a huge value add for both of our clients. And so our ability to bring those two together, I think, just ends up meaning, our clients are able to, convert at higher rates, get their supporters to take more action, really, bring more and more people into the fold. So that would be, a pretty high level priority for both of us. Alan, is there anything else that you wanted to add there?
I would say just two things. One, it's expectation set. We're about a month and a half into being sort of one. These are broad themes that we expect to be sort of layering in over the course of, call it, the next year, 18 months, and obviously longer term themes. This is not going to happen tomorrow. In some of these things will happen sooner than others, but just want to sort of expectations that these are some of our longer running themes that we expect to be investing in, but we are really excited about their ability to add value to our partners. The couple of things that I'd say outside of purely that sort of joint value out of the two platforms, Mobilize, on our roadmap is investing in a couple of areas. One is new use cases, which is sort of alluded to here, and there are some things that are uniquely enabled by our partnership with EveryAction. I would say, as I mentioned, fundraising is the first big one. Second is, again, building out some of the advocacy capabilities. We launched petitions at the end of the year, so doing some follow-ups to things like that. And, what we've heard a number of things from our partners that they'd like to see in that set of capabilities. And then third is some more volunteer management capabilities. Amanda, you and I have spent a bunch of time talking about how that we might be able to offer a really great combined solution there. But we know that some of our nonprofit partners really have some unique requirements on things like how they manage shift scheduling, how they manage the onboarding process, waivers, things like that. So, expect to see a little bit more there. So that's use cases. And then the second big area that Mobilize is investing in, again, highly aligned to some of these buckets, but is sort of one of our biggest themes, is going even further on how much value you're getting for the network. So we've set a goal for this year that we want 50% of signups on the platform being driven by the network and our automated event recommendations. It's an ambitious goal. We know that, we see some partners like Narelle that got that 29%. It's not impossible, but that's a huge area of value that we think we can deliver to our partners. So investing in things like the homepage experience on mobilize.us, we have a sort of automated newsletter, really investing in that surface a lot. A bunch of other things that we're going to be doing to enable people to bring their social connections and engage them at higher rates. So those are our big themes for this year, in addition to sort of some of this joint value.
So many questions, they keep coming. We have one question about a nonprofit with member organizations and they fall under a national network. Do we work with parent-child relationships like that?
We certainly do. And Alan, I know that that's something that you and your team have definitely invested time in as well.
Yeah, I flipped to this slide just because this is something that we've seen where if you have a very, let's say, complicated sort of nested organizational structure, especially for existing EveryAction clients, but I know that that's something that you all work super well with, is sort of some of those like parent-child relationships. We can map very cleanly to whatever your CRM setup is. And then one thing that I didn't mention explicitly, but we also have a set of APIs, a SQL mirror. You can get your data in and out of Mobilize kind of whichever way you want, but we also offer these sort of out-of-the-box integrations and can map to your setup in your CRM. So if you're a sort of nested organization or you have chapters or member organizations, we can, we've worked with a ton of those. I think one of our partners we rolled out like 100 to 150 chapters in the span of like a month and a half. It was a slog, but we did it and they were super happy and, had hundreds of thousands of signups. Very cool. We've definitely done some things with that real complexity around it.
Yeah, and I just want to underline there, I think working with affiliated organizations, right,
Yep.
and multi-state organizations and things like that is something that we both do have a lot of experience with. And I think, frankly, it's something that I've always given Alan and his team a ton of credit for, right? Working that those affiliated structures have been built from the ground up, are a lot of the core of, the EveryAction platform and how we think about data management and how our clients, right, want to use and share our data within and across affiliates. And Mobilize's ability to sort of like see the value proposition there and meet it within their tools. I just think, I think it's great. I think it was a really super smart move on their part. And again, I think going back to this slide, right, it's one of the reasons why we have such a highly used integration already, right? Because I think it's also something that it has been really, really easy for our mutual clients to enable and immediately start getting so much value out of.
Amanda, I'm not sure if we have the answer to this, but it's an interesting question. Will the reminder emails and confirmation emails coming from Mobilize be factored into EveryAction to ensure folks aren't getting multiple emails at the same time?
Interesting. So right now, the answer is no. I think they're still going to sort of just stay from the Mobilize side. But I will say, I think that's a great piece of feedback, right? And the reason why I think it hasn't come up for us immediately is frankly going back to the slide we're on, right? I think that our mutual clients, it's not something that's sort of like raised up to us at that level yet. They're kind of able to run that program, feel like it can be run independently enough that it hasn't really been a pain point from running email program from within EveryAction. But like I said, definitely an excellent point, and I'm sure something that will come up and that we'll talk a lot about in the future.
The couple of things that I'd add to that, one of the things that we found and spent a lot of time with our partners, especially we have some partners that, and many of you, maybe on the call and running really complicated, really sophisticated email programs, both email fundraising and volunteer recruitment email programs. One of the ways that we've thought about layering some of that transactional sort of messaging from Mobilize on top of that is that we really do want to be focused on a couple of things. One, giving the right level of tools so that our partners can kind of customize to the right level. You get the defaults, where the default is Mobilize and sort of our recommendations, our nudges are turned on. But we've given more controls to set some of those settings and things like that while also personalizing. But we also really do see sort of the transactional notifications as being just part of that supporter journey, where you may be using EveryAction's targeted email program, but that you're probably using for a very different use case than what the Mobilize automated recruitment is helping you with. And we also do give you visibility into when those notifications are going out on the Mobilize platform. So we really do see that as part of a sort of holistic supporter journey. But I think that regardless, the question is a really smart one that we should think some more about, because of course people want to get very sophisticated with their the supporter inbox. Makes total sense.
Totally.
There was a really good question. Here we go. Does Mobilize have the ability to allow lead volunteers to create their own events? Do we have to give them levels of access or approve them on the back end?
This is, oh, I love this question. This is great. Yes, we do. When was that? About 2 years ago now, we launched what we call we called it distributed organizing at the time. We now call it sort of supporter generated events or supporter created events. We've had over almost, I think, 40,000 volunteers create events for our partners. It's been an incredible asset to our partners. And I want to go, where was this insights page here. It's been a huge driver for our partners to be able to extend that leadership to their supporters. And we see a ton of benefits. I could only include one stat on this slide, but I wish I could have included 20, because we actually did a whole research project just on volunteer leadership. We have Emily, we still have the ebook live, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have an ebook about supporter-led events and sort of volunteer leadership, published about all of this data. But it's super powerful, and there's a ton of sort of complexity in the platform and the product offering, because we have run this at extremely large scales for some of our partners. So yes, you have the ability to, for example, moderate the events that are being submitted. You can add sort of a trusted host level. There's a bunch of stuff built in to be able to run these programs at scale that we'd, again, love to talk to you about. And so recommend reaching out to set up some time with someone on our team. But just a couple of other things that I love, one of the reasons I get excited about this question is that we see that it's a driver of list growth, right? Like, because your supporters have relationships. So if you're empowering them to create their own events and actions, they're going to bring their friends, which again gets those friends involved in your cause and grows your list. But we also know it actually retains volunteers better. We looked at this over tens of thousands of signups. Supporter-led events. If your first sign up on Mobilize is a volunteer hosted event, you are retained at twice the rate as if your first event is a staff-led event. When we saw that, we were blown away and just really excited. So yes, we do that. It's an area that obviously, as you can tell, I get very excited about and would love to work with you on, because I think that there are a lot of implications to running that type of program that there are real like empowerment benefits and mission benefits, but I think there's some of those like bigger strategic goals like list growth, like fundraising, like supporter retention, that strategy plays into in a way that I think a lot of our organizations are coming to realize, but we're really excited to talk to more about, with them about that.
Alan is not at all passionate about what he does. It's
not at all, not in the slightest.
We need to talk to him about.
Yeah.
And we'll send out that ebook in the follow-up email that we sent tonight, so you can all read through it instead of hearing Alan read it to you for 30 minutes. Okay, question about relational organizing, peer-to-peer texting, emailing, phone banking. How does all of this work with capabilities?
Man, I'd love for you to start, then I could talk a little bit about some of our social recruitment.
Sure. Well, okay. I was going to say, I think that you should talk about. So from our perspective, I mean, I think I'll step back and say, obviously, that's something that we've seen a ton of interest in, and a lot of different tools come out over the last several years. One of the other things I just feel like I have to say up top is that I don't feel like there's a single definition for what relational organizing means, right? Very frankly, this is aging myself, but we did relational organizing based on postcard programs, right? Back a million years ago when I was an organizer, right? And sort of those friend banks, everything from that to obviously now the much more sophisticated and I think automated programs that a lot of campaigns and organizations that we work with have built out over the last several years. So all of that said, when I think of relational, I really think it is, at its core, how are we empowering individuals to reach out to their networks? And then how are we making sure that I think this is a super important piece, that any of that information that is being collected from that one-on-one contact, and the reason you want that one-on-one contact is because that relationship is powerful, then how is that still making its way back? Right? So that organizations who are running these programs at scale are able to look at and think about how are you weaving in and layering, right? That more personalized touch, those more personalized asks with the broader programs that you're running. And so that's where, that's how we at Every Action have thought about, okay, so long as we are enabling all of that sort of data capture to happen, and those sort of like points between who is talking to whom about what on what channels, right? Then I think that is where it has sort of flowed into how, now I'll toss it over to Alan to talk about the kind of work that folks like Mobilize have done in enabling some of that activity.
Yeah, so, it's funny, actually, Amanda and I were on a panel together yesterday. And I made the point that, if you ask people about relational, ask 100 people, you get 100 different definitions. But when we think about it, it like goes back to the origins of when we're talking about organizing, or we're talking about support, engaging supporters in a sort of relational way. We think about people, that work has always been built on relationships, right, at its core. People, your supporters have a relationship with the organization at the brand level, with your staff at a certain level, and obviously with their networks, their families, their friends. So the way that we think about this from a Mobilize standpoint is a few things. I mentioned people bringing their friends. It's a major thing that we've enabled and optimized. We see up to about 15-20% of all signups on Mobilize being driven by people bringing their friends. This stat here, taking action is social. People take action together again and again and again. And so we're building a lot more tools for people to maintain those connections over time. And sort of that leadership piece. How do you build out communities around some of these volunteer leaders that we all know who these people are, right? Those active people, your supporters that are willing to go above and beyond. They also end up acting as these anchors for a community. And so we are giving them more and more tools to keep those volunteers or those supporters that are signing up with them engaged over time. So really thinking about it from a community and sort of relationship building perspective. And so that's kind of some of the things that we've done in that space.
All right, unfortunately, I have to cut you both off. We're at time. We didn't get to the last few questions. I apologize about that. If you are new to Mobilize or Every Action, please fill out the form. I linked to it in chat. It's also on this slide. You will also get it in an email later today. And you'll just hear from a rep up from Mobilize or Every Action to continue the conversation. If you currently use both Mobilize and Every Action and we didn't get to your question, get in touch with your representatives at either one, or you can always email support@mobilize.us. I put that in the chat too, or you can reply to the email that goes out later tonight. Thank you so much for attending and for all these thoughtful questions. And thank you to Alan and Amanda for all the insights. We really appreciate it.
This was super fun.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.